Build compelling real-time apps quickly and scale them globally with the PubNub Real-Time Network. Only PubNub delivers the core building blocks needed for any real-time application. Find out for yourself by signing up for free today. Visit pubnub.com. Welcome to This Week in Location-Based Marketing, the most trusted podcast dedicated to the new business of location. Hello, everybody, and welcome to This Week in Location-Based Marketing. Today is July 12th, 2013. This is episode number 138. My name, Rob Woodbridge, from OnTether.tv, located in sunny, warm Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Flood-free, I suppose, is the way to put it as well. And with me, as always, but not from his location, not from his usual location. Asif, that looks like a different background.
It is a little different. I am on vacation, but still committed to doing this worthy show with you. I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, for the annual family trek down here. So, and the weather's been really good, except for today it's raining.
Did you get caught up in that terrific storm in Toronto? Like, that was absolutely incredible. It was basically Toronto's Katrina.
No, completely missed it. It happened after I left.
Well, I was watching. We were watching the news, and then it came down. It was 140 millimeters of rain that fell in the span of an hour or 2 hours, and it flooded everybody's basement. Friends were doing. I mean, even saw Amber Mack, who was in Toronto as well, and her basement was flooded. They got all the equipment out, but it just came in like a torrent, and she said her basement is destroyed. And it's crazy to think that much rain fell and that much flooding happened in a city like Toronto.
Yeah, it's kind of like from what I can tell, again, I wasn't there for it, but it's like a once in a generation type of storm. Like, to get that much rain in such a short period of time, and so localized too. Like, I don't live in the city. I live about a 40-minute drive northeast of the city, and there was virtually no rain.
Well, you got lucky, because, I mean, can you imagine coming home to what could have been if you were in the city and you're on vacation?
Oh, I know. I'm quite happy.
There are these incredible photos and videos of people being rescued from commuter trains on the second deck, having to actually go out and have like hundreds of people rescued. They were stranded in flooded water. And there's this one picture. It's the iconic picture that I've seen, which is this Porsche Carrera in the middle of the highway, abandoned because a lawyer had to get to his case. So he got out of his car, trudged through in his like $5,000 suit, and went and defended his client, and then worried about the car later. That is selfless. Leaving the Porsche.
Did he win the case though? That's the
I don't know. But it's remarkable. He said, that insurance and all that kind of stuff can cover all that. I had an obligation, and that is dedication to the craft, my friend. And just like you doing this from your vacation, I would put those in the two things. Abandoning your vacation to come here is the same thing as abandoning.
I don't have a Ferrari to abandon. Though,
yeah, it was a Ferrari. I said Porsche, but it was a Ferrari, even better. It was just like heartbreaking, but. Anyways, well, the reason we do this is we couldn't go 2 weeks without doing an episode because there's just so much news. It just piles up and piles up and piles up. And if we don't get it to you quick enough, it expires. So here we are. We're doing this. And it is episode 138. That's consecutive weeks. We have not missed a week yet. And I hope to continue that streak going forward. It's a pretty incredible streak. I don't know what the world record is, but let's see if we can crush it. Unless it's like Leo Laporte, who's done 10,000 straight shows. Not up for that. So today we have 7 stories. We have a guest for you. It's actually a clip of an interview that I did with a woman named Krina Patel, who is a VP at a company called Ingenious Med. They are actually selling into hospitals, and the only way I can classify this is the way they're doing it is they're doing location-based billing. So they're doing a whole bunch of great things at the bedside with these devices and the doctors. You'll hear a little bit about that company. It ties into a couple of our stories, which is why we're doing it. Instead of bringing you a fascination of the week, I'm doing a very new show, I suppose it would be called, on Tether.tv, called A Mobile Minute. It's being resurrected, this time with author Chuck Martin, who I've had on the show before, and we've had on the show before as well. And today, I'm going to give you a clip of that. It's about 1.5 minutes, and that's how long they are. You can find them all on Tether.tv, and this is where we're going to be talking about what makes mobile users happy while they're in stores. It's a very fascinating clip. So before we get into that, I just want to know if there's anything that we need to be covering for the Location-Based Marketing Association. We're just on vacation, aren't we, Safe?
We are. Yeah, no, there's nothing too exciting happening for the rest of the month. I've got one little speaking thing in DC next week, but that's not open to the public, so can't really invite anybody to that.
Elitist bastard, right?
Yeah, hey, it's not my choice, man. I'd have everybody at these things if I could, but yeah, the Senate has called.
You respond, just like jury duty. When the Senate calls, you respond to that. Well, that'll be interesting. I see if I'll be here for another. I mean, on vacation another week, well deserved. So why don't we jump into this? We'll get this done very quickly. We're going to start with this episode of a Mobile Minute with Chuck Martin. We're going to be talking about right now what makes mobile users happy, what kind of store makes mobile users happy, and when they're in the store, what makes them even happier once they're in that store. So here is Chuck. We'll be back on the flip. We're back for another Mobile Minute. This time we are talking about apps and shopper happiness and the relation that they both have. What does it mean?
Well, some new research came out from a company called GigaOm Pro, and what they found was that based on the type of store and based on what people are doing, there are different gauges in terms of what people are very happy doing. For example, the stores where they're the happiest. These are only smartphone owners, by the way. So this is really keen, precise research. So smartphone owners, they're happiest in membership warehouse clubs, number one, discount stores, grocery stores, home improvement hardware, drugstores, and then consumer electronics, and that's in order. In terms of what's top on their list, in terms of what they're shopping for by purpose, number one, they're looking to find coupons. That's 28% of them. Compare prices, find upcoming events, get offers and deals, shop for gifts, compare products, check stocks in stores, inventory basically, remember what products they want to buy, a shopping list, keep up with new products, and manage rewards earned. So there's some real lessons here that apps are not going away in terms of shopping. The people, it turns out, who are using apps are happier across the board on each of those categories I mentioned than those who are not using the apps to shop.
It seems to me that app users and smartphone users are simply looking for a better deal. Are they cheap?
Well, they can't be that cheap. They're paying for these data plans, and they paid for the smartphone. So they're actually, I think this is speculation, but they appear to be looking for value.
Well, that is a Mobile Minute. If you're interested in that, there are 10 brand new episodes up there. We're doing it daily. We're really ambitious with this thing. So we've done it for 2 weeks now, and so I'm okay to actually promote this. But you can go to untether.tv and see the other 9. It's that intense. Minute and a half. Good information, relevant information for you guys who are listening to this. And we'll feature a few of them here when they're even more relevant to location-based marketing and retail and those things that we talk about quite a bit. So thanks, Chuck. All right, let's jump into these stories because we got so many of them, and I think that some of these will elicit some great debate, starting with this first story. This can't be true. Apple looking at somebody else's technology and saying, hey, we made that. In fact, we're going to patent that. And oh, by the way, then we're going to create something like that, and it's called Waze. They lost the bidding for Waze, and now they've come out with a patent. It's been displayed. It's put out for open discussion. They of basically a Waze clone for crowdsourcing information about your drive home. So it would speculate, obviously, that they're going to be making something that is competing against Waze. Now, this shouldn't surprise anybody, should it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Apple has made it clear they want to be in the map business. They obviously tried and failed, and then brought Google back into the App Store, and people have been all over that. Google won the battle for Waze, and Apple's sitting there going, well, at the end of the day, we're not giving up on our maps. Our maps are going to be good. They're going to be great, and they need to be comparable to Google's. So we need to have this kind of feature of real-time traffic alerts, the same as Google now will have with the Waze acquisition, and so let's do everything we can to do it better than anybody else, which is what Apple always tries to do, right? So
it's a good thing to strive for.
Yeah.
This is a good story. What I like about it is a few things. Is that the thing that Waze does very well is not new. In fact, we've had on untether.tv and here we've had Inrix as a guest, and these guys are experts in traffic patterning, not patterning, traffic patterns and getting you home faster. That is the entire mandate of a company called Inrix. They basically bring in this big data and they give you the optimized route to get you home 10 minutes or 15 minutes before that you normally would. These guys are experts in it. It seems like unlikely that Apple can actually get this patent because of a company like Inrix that obviously has prior. They have patents all up the wazoo. And that's a very interesting company. I love what they're doing because they are experts in traffic patterns and getting you from A to B. But one of the features that I really, truly loved about the Apple, the way that it was written up in TechCrunch, and Darrell Etherington talked about it, is that the way that they are going to take that App Store approach of stars and apply it, I guess is what they're saying, to the routes that you're taking. So, there's this nebulous thing that comes up when you go with Waze. You say, listen, I'm going from here, I want to get to there. And then it kind of gives you like 5 options. And I'm like, it's the user interface isn't great, right? Because it's like, well, this one's longer, but the distance, this one, distance is longer, but the time is shorter. It's confusing. Simplify that process, and that's what Apple's trying to do here. They're going to give it a 1 to 5 star rating based on all those things that go into it: the traffic, the weather, your type of car you're driving, leaded versus unleaded. I don't know what they're going to do, sunspots, but they're going to add that all in and give you a star rating, and then at the end of your trip, actually ask you to rate that route, and then it's going to go up, and so the way that you participate is a little bit different than you would with Waze. Instead of, I think, the whole idea of driving and crowdsourcing and telling people that it's slow, that stuff has to be done automatically. So maybe Google will do, or Apple will do that. But I love the idea of rating these in 1 to 5 stars for the next person.
Yeah, I do too. I think that giving or simplifying the choices that people have, and simple, anytime you can make something simpler, it's always better, right? That's the thing that always happens to me. I walk into that bakery and, I see, 600 things that, are appealing to me. But, if there was only 2 things, it'd be a lot easier. I could just make that decision fast, be in and out of that bakery, and then be done, right? But it's when there's so much choice. Yes. It costs us time. And we live in a society right now where it's all about speed and now and, quick decisions and instant gratification. So, I think this fits right in with the way society is.
Well, it'd be interesting to see when it happens, and because it's bound to happen. And I've started using the Apple Maps application again, and not for any real traveling, as I discussed last week, but it just shows you how important this whole GPS and location and mapping world is. It's going to be, we're just at the beginning of this, so this is going to be an ongoing battle. This is the next piece here, obviously, is crowdsourced data in mapping. So Apple, getting in there. Eesh. Yes. All right, our second story is Sif.
There you go. The second story, yes. So this is a story about a company called YuMe, which is a video ad targeting platform, if you will. And what they've done is they're claiming this is for the first time this has been done. I don't know. I can't verify that, but I'll go with it for now. Is enabling advertisers to reach via television audience individual households as a subset. So when you buy a TV ad today, it's by zone, it's by cable zone, it's by a number of different districts, if you will. But being able to reach and map a TV ad to an individual household, is something that is kind of like the ultimate dream for TV ads, and that's effectively what YuMe has been able to do. And what they're doing is it's not just TV, is they're tracking the IP address of an individual household, from the router, if you will, that's in that house, running Wi-Fi or whatever it is. And then what they do is they look at all the devices that are connected to that IP. So you might have a internet-enabled TV, you might have laptops, you might have tablets, whatever you have in that household. And they aggregate all that together and say all these devices are part of this IP address. We're going to enable advertisers to target all the devices at this individual household level with whatever ad that they want to run. So that's kind of what the platform is situated to do right now. So very, very specific, very location oriented.
Do they all see the same ad? Like, I read the press release here, and how many times they talk about synergy and every buzzword ever? I think that, I don't mean to be an ass, but I'm about to be, is that like anybody who wrote that press release deserves to go through another lesson or schooling on how to write a press release. So many buzzwords in this as the world's only, the biggest, the greatest, synergistic, synergy. Like, I mean, it was terrible. And it left me thinking, like, I don't understand what exactly it does. You just explained it, which is fine. But does it display the same ad across all platforms here? Or I mean, the example that they use here is that, buying a car, because I guess their first customer is Hyundai, right? And buying a car is a family affair. So they want to push ads to everybody. It's like, no, it isn't. As much as I love my kids, they're not going to help me decide between, a $100,000 Jag or a conventional car that the average human can afford. So, the idea is that they do they all get the same ad on all platforms? Is that what this is?
No, it didn't specify, but I would think that the ads are optimized for the device screen size and all that kind of stuff, right? So it may be, if you see a TV commercial, that might be one format, and there might be a different version of the same ad for tablet or for mobile phone or whatever the case might be. But it's all Hyundai in this. But
case, it just sounds so weird. Like, my kids are not interested in that commercial. Like, that's the thing that is really kind of interesting for me. Is that if it's me, I can understand that they want to target me on all my platforms, all my devices. But they're saying, like, households, like you can target households, and that means my kids, that means me, that means my wife, and we all have drastically different interests, right? And so I look at this and I think there's got to be something better here, because this doesn't do it for me. Maybe this is we're at the beginning of it, but this doesn't spark a light under my ass. This just says, like, you know what, more jargon, right? But maybe they're just trying to test it and see what sticks. And so I can't, I'm a little bit mixed on this.
I mean, the concept of getting an ad down to a household level, to me, has some value. I will agree with you though, like that, within that household, there's different interests and preferences and things like that. So
and I think that we'll talk about a story a little bit later on about these kind of things, like factual, right? Our sixth story about really, really, really high geo targeting, and there's got to be a much better way. Like, basically, we're talking about the mobile cookie, right? And that's the important piece here. So there's until we solve that piece, it might be a small piece, but it's like that missing link of DNA that connects us to the apes, right? It's like, hey, we've been looking at that for a whole long time, right? And I think that's what we're still looking for here. So, but if you're interested, it's YuMe, that's YuMe.com. You can go take a look at them and see what they're up to. It's a multi-screen, I mean, I don't even know what this is called, but it's like create it once, display it everywhere, multi-screen in your household, targeted to your home. So, and their first partner is Hyundai. That's story number 2. All right, story number 3 is, see, what if we said, listen, when I was 9 or 10 years old, maybe it was a little older, I was very influenced by Midas and the Midas touch, and everything that he turned to was gold. And I thought, wow, that would be the best thing. Obviously it's a cautionary tale. If you haven't heard about it, I don't want to spoil it. But I always thought that, listen, we're going to have implanted chips into our fingers, right? With all of that was based on, I think I've talked about this, is that based on our fused with our tissue inside of our finger, and then we're going to use that for swiping product and swiping payments, and it'll all be done automatically based on whether I have a living, like a heart rate or a pulse. As soon as I die, that stuff doesn't work, obviously, and people will cut my finger off just to steal my money. But here we are, we're talking about biometric payments in France. This is pretty cool. I don't know what else to say.
It's really cool, and with all the the focus in North America on NFC and Level Up and all this stuff, which is it's getting some traction. I saw another article this week about Level Up is now going to be in the Apple stores. That's
very interesting.
So I'm not going to talk about that, but so we're starting to get some level of maturity, early still, but a first level of maturity, I'll say, in mobile payments. And here comes biometrics. So this is in France, and what you have here is a couple of retail chains. One in particular, a company called Leroy Merlin, which is a home improvement chain, I guess the Home Depot of France, so to speak. And they and a couple other retailers and a group of banks and credit card issuers over there. I'm not going to list them all, but Bank Accord, BNP Paribas, Credit Agricole, etc. The list goes on. There's a whole bunch of them have teamed up, and effectively what you do is if you have an account with one of these banks, you can go into these places. You can register your fingerprint, and there's two types of biometrics technologies that they're testing here. One is a digital fingerprint, so a scan of your fingerprint, and the other is what they're calling a finger vein pattern. So they can actually measure the vein patterns or something in your fingers as well.
Really?
And these trials are being tested in different retailers. But what happens is you go in, you register these fingerprints with your bank. The fingerprint is connected to your credit card or your debit card account effectively offline. And then when you show up at a store, card present still kind of thing. But the idea is that you go, you make a purchase, and you simply press your finger on the on the reader, and away you go. You're authenticated because it's already associated with your bank account and your credit card. You don't have to enter a PIN. You don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. So it's simple, kind of cool.
Well, it's very cool. But it still requires you to have a card, like a smart card on you, right? A chip card, yeah.
Yeah. You still have to have the card with you. But the idea is to kind of speed up the queuing process, if you will, right? By simply swiping or scanning instead of you having to actually type in on a keypad your PIN number or all that kind of stuff, right?
You talk about like the worst user interface on the planet right now is typical the keypads, right? Well, like some of it's touch screen, some of it is on on push buttons on for the numbers and for your PIN, and you're going back and forth, and it confuses. And no offense here, but it confuses the elderly quite considerably, right? Is that there's a lot of confusion. But we here in Canada, we have PayPass, right, which is basically tap and go.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to use my PIN for that. So is this we're testing the boundaries here of the future a little bit, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and to some extent, this is about making sure that your card is present, regardless of the person is actually present, associated with that card, right? No matter what that is, because the reality is, even with PIN, right? Somebody can get your PIN number, and if they have a copy of your card or whatever, they can punch it in. But your fingerprint's your fingerprint, that's a lot harder to replicate.
But I just have a really great strategy about anti-fraud, and that is just to keep your bank account at zero and your credit cards maxed, and nobody can steal from you. Yes. It's a pretty sound strategy for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we're going to start to see this kind of biometric stuff ushering in. We're already seeing, one of our stories coming up is about facial recognition. And we've talked a lot about this around facial recognition and other ways that people are going to be identified by and sold to. And I think that biometrics is coming. It's got to be natural, right? There's got to be just a natural extension of us. Like I like the finger swipe, I like the touch, I like all those kind of things. And but here's my challenge, is that it has to be all or nothing, right? Like I don't want to carry a card at the same time as have to use my fingerprint. Like there's going to be a point in time where there is going to be, where we as humans are comfortable enough to be able to say, I can leave my card at home, everything is attached to my fingerprint or retina scan, whatever it might be. I don't know, spit. You might have to spit in something. Who knows? But I think that
yeah, here's how another example on a personal note is, I travel all the time and a lot between Canada and the U.S. I have a Nexus card that travel. So, for me, when I'm leaving and going out of Canada and into the U.S. and back, it's so much easier for me to walk up to one of those machines, have it scan my retinas, and I'm in. Like, I don't even have to talk to anybody. Yeah. Like, it's great. Like, I don't have to sit there and go through, why were you in the U.S. and what are you visiting for and how long are you going to be? Like, who cares? Like, I'm here, I'm authenticated, you know who I am.
You have everything on me. Exactly. It's like the self-checkout at the airports. So, Nexus is incredible. Yeah. And you no lineups, right? You just walk right through. It's amazing. Well, we're going to get there. We will. I think we are the roadblock. The humans are the roadblock, I think, is for these kind of things. But I'm eagerly watching this go down, and I think it's very, very important. It just shows you this is a global play. And the things that we're talking about in North America are completely different, can be completely different than the things they're talking about in Europe or in Asia. And the technologies that we're fighting over here, which is NFC in the phone, is like, screw it. We're going to go full on biometrics because we're going to get there anyways. Forget the battle of NFC for payments, right? And I think that's what that's what this tells me is that, okay, that conversation will be moot at some point. Forget this conversation of whether or not Apple is going to have an NFC in their device for payments, because don't wait on it because they'll be left behind like these guys are doing in Europe, in France. Pretty cool. 2 stories about France today. What's going on with that? The French. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to talk about hospitals. We're going to talk, they're similar in some way, shape, or form, biometrics, payments, and human bodies and stuff, and hospitals. And this is a company that I'm so impressed with. It's Ingenious Med. This is a clip with Krina Patel. She is a VP at Ingenious Med, at ingeniousmed.com. These guys started, they have a great founder. His name is Dr. Liu, and he actually started in the mobile space, looking at mobile in hospitals in 1999 with a Palm Pilot, right? So they went whole hog into this, and here we are 14 years later, and obviously when the iPhone came out and everybody started carrying smartphones, they went back into the mobile space. It didn't work the first time. They're poised right now. They're saving hospitals millions of dollars. Actually, not saving, generating revenue for hospitals to the tunes of millions of dollars every year in kind of lost billing at the bedside. It's incredible the story that these guys are doing. They found a little niche. They got their software and devices, and now they're expanding it. But it all has to do with on the spot, location-based billing. It's the only way that I can describe it. But Krina is going to give us a little bit about who the company is and what they do. And I implore you, go and check out Ingenious Med. They're one of the only companies I know that have been able to bring a mobile solution into a hospital like this. It has nothing to do with records. It has nothing to do with anything like that. It's all about argent, la cash, la bakshish. So here is Krina Patel, VP at Ingenious Med, and we will discuss it or not on the flip side. Tell me about Ingenious Med.
So Ingenious Med was founded in 1999. We were founded by physicians, and we were for physicians. So as you can tell, the solution that we provided was actually created by the direct end user. So first of all, when physicians or any user actually looks at the system, ergonomically, they're just glued to it simply because the layout is in line with what they do every day. The technology is there, the patterns, the terms, the flows, the technical components are all fluid with what they're doing with their processes within the inpatient, outpatient settings.
So so what do you guys do for them? There's plenty that you do for them, but for 14 years you've been involved in this. Give us an example of how you infiltrate or how you get into and onto the doctors, get the doctors using you guys.
So what we specialize in is charge capture, which is the professional fee service side of the billing components. Obviously, there's a facility billing component that the hospital worries about, but we're all professional fee, getting the physicians paid. So traditionally, what they're doing is they're capturing these charges, and I'm going to refer to them as charges, on these pieces of paper, note cards, 3x5 cards that potentially end up in their jacket pockets, potentially at their dry cleaners, and 2 weeks of patients being seen and charges captured, just gone. No revenue reconciliation method, no revenue protection methodology, no organization, no accountability to the organization. You can't even, the organization doesn't even know what patients you're seeing at that point in time. So really what we do is we replace that paper, we replace that note card and all the processes around it. So not only do you guys think about the charge capture side of it, but there's a lot of patients that are being handed off from one physician to the other physician when you have shift change. So you got to think about communication methodologies. You also have to think about quality of care of the patient. Since we are at the point of care, since we are driving to be at the bedside, what can we do to whisper in the physician's ear to give them some evidence or give them some clinical decision support based on the criteria of the patient, the age, the disease categories that they may be assigned to, or the payers, knowing that there's certain methodologies that they would like us to take when taking care of those patients. And I think lastly, it's really providing the reporting metrics. You'll be surprised. I talked to some of the biggest health systems in the country, and I asked them, how do you know how you're going to staff a facility, a hospital facility? Well, we just kind of depend and see which one's fighting the most, which one's coming to us the most, being really egregious about we have to order or we have to hire. Where I get blown away because I tell them, you know what, I can actually give you real-time census data. I can trend for you any period of time and show you your spikes throughout the year when you probably need to pick up an additional FTE, and when you're actually dipping because we're out of flu season and you can probably drop a quarter or a half FTE. It's
pretty amazing. What, it strikes me that what you guys do is that almost immediately. I mean, how much on the first thing, which is just simply billing. I mean, is there an estimate about how much these hospitals are losing as a result of that? It seems it would be a lot.
They don't know what they're losing.
So that's even worse.
It is worse. You go in it. And today everybody's trying to sell a system. They're trying to sell you the EMR, which costs millions of dollars, right? They're trying to sell you another little system that's going to help you with order entries. They're going to send you another little system that's going to help you with revenue cycle. But nobody really is going to give you a return on any of those things. Those are just process improvement, their efficiencies, it's communications, it's streamlining the whole hospital at its entirety. So I think in our space where we're actually different is we are telling you you're actually going to get a $30,000 to $40,000 pickup after deploying us. And we'll come back in and we'll do the ROI and we'll show it to you. Statistically, it's proven from all the clients, all the names that we have on our actual client list. It's anywhere from the low 30s all the way to I've even seen 60s come in for some of these providers.
But that seems like that's astounding to me. I understand there's a frenetic pace that goes on, and the medicine has to land where it is, and the tests have to be where they are. And I mean, I grew up on St. Elsewhere and ER, all of those kind of I've seen this in action, right? Where it's like, damn the costs, save the patient, right? And then, but you don't see them in the television shows, like filling out the forms to fill out the bills to make sure that they've identified the customer and the cost and actually putting those together.
Exactly.
So, I mean, was that the premise? Was that the premise of Ingenious when it began? Was to just find those costs? Like '99, you guys were at the beginning of this internet revolution as well. Is that where you guys started, or did you guys migrate into that space?
So actually, that's a great question. We actually started from a coding compliance perspective. One of the things that happens in the industry, and I think it's a phenomenon, just like everybody gets audited for taxes, we actually get audited for making sure that your levels of service match the patient's documentation. For physicians straight out of residency, it's really not that clear. I don't think it's clear to majority of the physicians out there what constitutes a level 1, level 2, level 3 severity of patient. So what we did is on a Palm Pilot, is created the clinical decision support as to telling you what's going to constitute for what severity. So you need to document X amount of review of systems, HPI items, in order to say that this is a level 2 charge, and to be compliant, we're giving you everything that you need to put into the patient's chart. At the time, when we're talking in '99, EMRs were just getting traction and they were just coming out. So actually having that on your mobile device, sitting down at a desk, writing a patient's progress note, and having those elements to guide you was a need that there wasn't a single vendor that was filling that need. And I think our founders found, number one, it's important to capture the charge, which is the platform we built right with it, the charge capture platform. But if you're going to capture the charge, you've got to do it in a compliant manner. Because in this day and age, Medicare is looking for everybody who's taking money from them fraudulently.
Yes, and rightly so. And rightly so. And my guess is that over the last 14 or 15 years, even since mid-90s, I would say, since really electronic document management came into place, there is a greater and greater and greater certainty that somebody who is doing something fraudulent will get caught as a result of the technology being implemented. This just brings that a little bit closer. And the onus ends up being on the doctors, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they want to protect themselves.
Yes.
So from that standpoint, when the founders made that solution, and they made it mobile, that's really where it fit the best in that world. And today, I think we went through a wave. We went through a wave of, all right, we're actually going to let the mobile devices go because the Palm died.
Yeah.
Windows Mobile somewhat died.
Yes.
And then we went through this phase of BlackBerry's it, and we tried to revive Windows Mobile at some extent. And then iPhone came out with the first generation phone. And then you started to see a pickup in all mobile usage, and then Android came out. And now I don't think we have a physician that doesn't have a smartphone.
And that is Krina Patel. She is a VP at Ingenious Med. If you're interested in watching the whole episode, listening to more about her story and their story, it's pretty great. I love little success stories like this, companies that you've never heard of that are doing insane business inside of hospitals, where at one point you thought that it was just a big, thick wall that you couldn't bust through. I mean, it's very hard to sell in hospitals. These guys have managed to do it. You can check out the episode. It is episode number 466 on untether.tv. Or you can just go to ingeniousmed.com for some more information. And I thank Krina for doing that, and I thank her for being a part of this episode as well. Krina Patel, ladies and gentlemen. All right, back into the stories. To see number 4. I am always astounded when I hear the word Unilever, because I used to use their Level 2000, I think is what it was, Lever 2000 soap. And I always used to think of it in this little pocket, but then they're a massive company, and let's talk about what they're doing here with SolveMedia.
Yeah, so Unilever partnered with a company called SolveMedia, and SolveMedia is come up with a really simple. There's that word again, simple. Yet I think quite powerful. New ad platform. It's a mobile ad platform called Type In, and basically what they've done is they've taken the concept of the captcha. The little security thing we see all over the place with that garbled up word that we have to type in to authenticate that we're a real human and not a bot, that we see all over the web. So they've taken the concept of a captcha, and instead of giving you just random garbled words, they give you a branded word that's associated with, in this case, a Unilever product that's involved with this campaign. So they ran a campaign for a Unilever salad dressing called Wishbone, and got some phenomenal results. Basically, what you had to do is in order to get you would get free, but by typing in this word, and they had words like sassy, tangy, tasty, words to describe this salad dressing, where the captchas, if you will, or branded captchas, is how I describe what this type-in thing is. And if you type one of these in, you get 24 hours of free music on Songza. And so we talk all the time, you and I, Rob, we talk all the time about the value of content being the reward or the incentive, as opposed to, a coupon or a discount. And that's exactly what this is. It's one of the reasons I really like this platform. The simplicity of people understand that captcha kind of concept. I think everybody's seen it out there. If you've been on the web at all, you've seen it. But the idea of it not being some garbled up, nonsense word, but a real word associated with a brand, and a brand effectively sponsoring, free music for you doing something to, help their brand or put that brand in your mind. This makes sense.
Yeah, this is. I wonder why it took so long for this to happen, where companies have started to use the captcha as something else. Now, I think that I read somewhere that Google was using captchas, and companies were using captchas as native language learning mechanisms. They would be able to distinguish between what word was a real word and what word was not a real word, and they would use captchas, and some of that kind of. So the idea for this, of using it for something else, has always been there. But I guess the marketing layer has never been there. But I use Songza when I'm in the gym sometimes, and I've never heard an ad. Like, they don't do ads; they do banner ads. Is that what they're talking about here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, except that it's a full size, or I guess it's a banner ad that expands into a full size, full screen.
And then
ad.
when I type in like sassy or whatever it is, whatever the word is for the one thing that it's very interesting is that I don't even. I pulled up the screen there. I'll pull it up right here, right now. You'll see it behind me. Is that it has type in to continue, sassy, tangy, tasty. And then it has please enter sassy. And then it has SolveMedia. And then it has no branding for the actual company that they're advertising. Like, very little branding in it. And I thought, well, it's interesting that they don't really care, I guess. Like, I assume that Unilever would be like front and center.
Well, it starts with a Wishbone salad dressing.
I haven't seen where it originates from. So there's a little pictures of the salad dressing. Yeah,
it starts with the Wishbone salad dressing image, and then it leads you into this thing.
But it works well. But I just don't like. So when I type this in, when I type sassy in, does it just remove the banner ads from the application? Is that what it does? You think? Yeah.
I think so. I don't know. Again, I haven't been able to test it, but yeah, I would assume that's what's happening.
So these are the great things. So like, say you go to a hockey game in Canada, you go to a baseball game, you go to a football game, and you want free Wi-Fi. Here's an opportunity for like Oscar Mayer to support this, where you get free Wi-Fi for the game, right?
Yep.
And we've talked about this. Is that the Scrabble for Wi-Fi? This is a perfect example. The captcha for access to something, and I agree with you. I like this little transaction that happens as a result instead of a coupon. I'm not the relationship between Unilever and Songs. I'm not really sure.
But it worked. I mean, like they've got numbers on this thing that's huge returns. They said the research conducted with Unilever showed an 87% lift for purchase intent for Wishbone salad dressings against the ComScore mobile norms of 23%.
Yeah. So hey, you know what that says? Shut the fuck up, Rob. This works. Stop thinking about it too much. The stuff that works.
And they sell this on a pay for performance basis. So it's not like you're just paying for.
I like that a lot. I mean, I think that this this has the potential certainly to be very, very, very strong. Obviously, with an up of that 87%, that's incredible. SolveMedia, Unilever, and it's a we just send them to solvemedia.com. They can find information about this. But that's pretty cool. I like this.
There you go.
Yeah, I can't argue with this. Not with those numbers. Just shut up, Rob. That's it. Okay, so now listen. Here's our second story about France, and this is an interesting thing because IBM thinking logically about the mix of billboards and functionality, and they said, listen, we're, what can we do with billboards to make it a little bit more, make the city a little bit greener, make the city a little bit more appealing, show some creativity around the way that we advertise and some utility around these billboards instead of sticking them way up or just putting, one-dimensional billboards up. They started to do these very unique designs around billboards. On one side, I think this is very creative, but it's not as creative as that. Hey, you want a lift? Bus shelter that we saw, right? Where I'm going to pull up some screens here that walk us through this. Is that they have one of these billboards that is Smart Cities that is basically a shelter against the rain. It curves out off of the wall. Then there's another one that helps actually, they cover some stairs that allows you to, as the picture is, if you're seeing this right now, is to bring up your luggage across, over a bunch of stairs, like a little ramp. Or there's one that is that has a curve on the bottom that is painted like a bench. Now, what's the purpose of this, Asif, and what has this got to do with location?
Well, I mean, for me, any billboard, digital or print or otherwise, is a location-specific ad. It's only relevant to people in front of it, in that location. So, from the beginning of time, out of home has been, for me, location-based. IBM, for a long time now, this is not new, has had this marketing campaign called Smarter Cities. This is something they've been at for years. And the idea of it is to say, hey, we're not just a technology company, but we're about empowering people, empowering citizenry, empowering cities, empowering just things to be better, the planet, smarter cities, smarter planet, all that kind of stuff. And so I think this fits with that from a marketing concept perspective, right? Is to say, hey, why should a billboard just be a billboard? Why shouldn't it be a bench? Why shouldn't it be a shelter? Why shouldn't it be something else that's functional and can add value to the city and make the city smarter? In a similar campaign, they did one, I can't remember what airport. It was an airport campaign, a digital billboard this time. And what would happen is they look at the association between people's sensitivities to colors, to certain colors. And so they actually had a billboard in an airport where it was just a regular IBM Smarter Cities billboard is all it said on it. But the whole thing was lit up, and like the words and the icon around Smarter Cities was all lit up in a color. The entire thing was red. But what would happen is there was cameras built into the screen. And so if you walked up and stood in front of this and you were wearing a blue shirt, the entire thing would change to blue. And if you were wearing a green shirt, it would change to green. So the idea being is that you're wearing a green shirt because you like green. Right, and if we reflect that, this kind of echoing thing, almost, that you have a better appreciation for the ad in front of you. And they weren't trying to sell IBM. They were just trying to show that color can affect, our awareness and how we interact with these advertising pieces. So, yeah.
Well, they are colorful, and there's a video up there that will show you how it's being used, and they are being used. And this is you're right. This is a very unique, instance-based, but I mean, other than the utility, they're pretty boring billboards, right? But I guess that's the great thing, is that the utility is the fact that they're ingenious, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're interested, you can just go to just do a search for IBM Smarter Cities billboards, and you will see some examples as we've shown up here. I've only seen the 3, but what is it with Paris today, man, or France? Like, this is it's like truly they've knocked it out. 2 out of the 7 stories about France.
Yeah, I guess they're. I mean, there's a lot of great companies over there. We don't talk about it often enough, probably. We tend to hear a lot when we talk about Europe from the UK and Germany and places like that. But as we talked about last week on the show, I mean, there's companies in Fiji and in Myanmar and all these places all over the place that are cropping up. They're doing great things in location. So France is no exception.
And there's a perfect example. The best Springsteen show I ever saw was in Paris at Bercy Stadium. We saw him during his the Seeger Sessions tour. Awesome. Anyways, big fond memories of Paris and France. That's it. Okay, now here, our 6th story. I want to know, do you think that this kind of information, like, we've talked a lot about this hunt for the mobile cookie, which is something that follows you from screen to screen or from place to place, and uses that information to feed you relevant ads, relevant data, relevant things. This seems to me, Factual and their new geo-targeting service seems to me that it's close to this. It's leveraging your history to project things that you might enjoy. Is this as close as we're going to get to a cookie?
Well, I mean, remember, Factual is an enabling company that has tools, APIs, SDKs, all that kind of stuff to power every other mobile platform, brand, etc. Right? So, they're certainly not a consumer-facing company, and won't be. And these 2 new solutions aren't oriented that way either. So, but the importance of big data and location data is paramount right now. And what I talk about as location is the new cookie, I think is illustrated here. So there's 2 new services they launched. One called GeoPulse Audience. The other is called GeoPulse Proximity. 2 very different things. Audience is, as the name implies, it's about tracking, building historical maps or layers of location information that's demographically based. So this is about building associations between you, where you hang out, who you hang out with, the kinds of places you visit. So they know this is in the example they give, whether you're a college student or you're a business traveler, and things like that. And then opening up that information to third party developers, brands, etc., that want to target certain audience demographics based on that. So that's what the audience platform is. Then the proximity platform is a geofencing platform where the focus is on real-time and fast, super fast geofencing. It's effectively, I think the way to describe this. So normally, and I have no way to validate this other than what I'm reading in the press here. By the way, Tyler Bell, the CEO of Factual, and we do a lot of work with Factual at the LBMA, will be on the show in a couple of weeks. We've scheduled the interview, so we'll have him on as a guest, so he can talk about this first.
He can tell us how wrong we are.
Yeah, you can tell us how wrong we are. We're simply reporting it because it's news this week and coming out. But so they've got a lot of data. They've got 65 million businesses points of interest in Factual database today. And so the idea is that as a brand, if you want to geofence your store or your mall or your doctor's office or whatever it is, you can do that. And if you're listening to this, you don't know what a geofence is, draw a virtual radius around your property of whatever perimeter or radius you want. So you can say, here's a 2 mile around my location. And when somebody who's opted in through a platform that's leveraging this geofencing system enters that radius, push notifications and things like that can be sent to them. This itself, this geofencing piece is a crowded space. There's lots of people in that business at the moment. But from the claims here, and again, we'll let Tyler defend this for himself in a few weeks, it's about the speed of how quickly they can do this and deliver.
And we know that that's the most important piece, right? Is that you have a finite amount of time to be able to interact with somebody based on where they are and influence a decision, and it has to be fast. I look forward to that because I think that with that number of locations and the reach that they have around the applications that are leveraging this data and contributing back into this data, there's got to be a way, as you said, differentiating between a college person, a college student, and an executive is very important. But then you also add that layer of where you've been and what you've done, which is what some of this does, and that kind of data to me is the equivalent to that cookie. It has to. Because we're not going to get to that ubiquity where we are on the web, where cookies are cookies and it's a standard and people have accepted them as much as they are going to accept them, and you're getting targeted and retargeted ads based on where you've been, right? So any of you, go right now to the Shopify website, shopify.com, and you will, or go to remotive.com for the Romo, and then take a look at how many times the Shopify and the Remotive ads come up, right? So that we don't have that equivalent in mobile, and I think that it's the data that certainly companies like Factual are using right now that are going to bridge that gap until something. I don't know what comes as a result. I don't know if there is a way to create a cookie in mobile, if there ever will be, but this data is that cookie, really. So Factual.
Yeah, and the nice thing, and just to kind of go a bit further on that, on the speed issues. So they're talking about delivering these things in nanoseconds, not milliseconds, which is the key thing. And for those big data geofencing geeks out there, we're talking about the first time you can create irregular polygon shapes in terms of how you do these things, as opposed to non. This is a big thing, and the reason that they're able to do this is the geofencing solution, if you will, in this proximity solution, is on site. It's on premise. It's not something that's sitting up here in the cloud and being done by somebody else and whatever, which is why they can have that speed. So I'll leave it to Tyler to go further than that in a few weeks. But
very
pretty cool.
Factual's new geotargeting service, very, very, very cool. And can't wait to have Tyler on. And if we say any more, there's going to be no need for him to come on. So we're going to move on to the seventh story. Here is our last story before we get to the resource of the week. Now I'm going to completely 100% butcher the name of this company, but there's a company called Syngera that tracks.
Syngera.
How is it? Syngera?
Okay. I think so.
Syngera tracking facial expressions, and they're doing this in store with Ulibka Radugi. Oh
yes.
How's that?
Oh
my goodness! So facial recognition in store. So we talked about it last week. We talked about understanding movement at the store shelf in order to be able to determine what people are looking at versus what they're buying and picking up those analytics. We've talked about new forms of payment using the Xbox. In order to be able to do facial recognition so that you don't have to pull out a credit card or payment. So these things are emerging very quickly. And here, facial expressions in store to do what, Asif?
Basically combine the facial expression data that they're collecting with other data they have about users via loyalty platforms and such. And then, from real-time analytics perspective, then deliver targeted offers.
Based on what, I just can't think about it. Is it the facial structure so that they're going to understand that I'm a man or a woman? Is it skin color so that I'm going to display different products based on my skin color? I mean, is it like whether I'm bald or whether I have lots of hair? Do they,
No, it's things like. I assume it's the gender and things and skin color things are already known if you're combining this with other data. I got the impression from the way I'm reading this is that it's really looking at the emotional
Yes.
side of the expression. Like, is this, how happy is this person or not?
Seriously.
And what kind of mood they're in and things like that. And then what happens is when you leave the store, then you get an SMS text message offering you a discount or ad based on your emotional state, if you will.
If you look angry, it's going to be a discount for therapy or something like that.
I don't know. But yeah, and maybe it's it's something like where you've got I don't know, you're frowning a lot, so your wrinkle lines are more, and we sell you cosmetics. So I don't know.
Botox treatments.
Probably something along those lines, right?
Well, I mean, it's very interesting to determine. Sometimes, I don't know if you can tell. I mean, I don't frown a lot, but I wonder if they can actually gauge emotion through this. And I know that they're even in the same article that I wrote, they were talking about Xbox One will feature targeted ads based on facial recognition. And it's interesting that they were talking about this, is that they did this study, and I wish I had the number. So yeah, it said 79% of Americans favor using facial recognition at various locations and public events, and 81% support expanded camera surveillance on streets and in public places. And I think, holy cow! Like, I don't know what 80% that they chose that they talked about that, but this is a far cry different world than we lived in 4 or 5 years ago, and when we talked about compressing civil liberties, because these numbers would have been insane. People would have put their hands up and said, "No more facial recognition! Are you kidding? That's an invasion of my privacy." And here we are talking about it to determine whether or not you're smiling or if you're grumpy that day, and then being pushed targeted ads based on your facial expressions. I think this is like, sometimes I think, we haven't solved the simple problems yet. And this is a complicated problem to solve, right? Like, what happens if it's like, what happens if I just have jowls, right? Like, what if I'm just, I can't smile because I'm physically disabled, or like I've had a stroke, and it's like, I'm getting all of these like wrinkle cream and stuff. Like, there's a sensitivity issue here as well.
And I think I have difficulty. I mean, I like the concept of this.
Yes.
I have difficulty understanding the connections to cosmetics specifically.
Yes.
I think there's other applications for this that are really interesting. And in the article I was reading about this, it linked to another article that was talking about the whole idea of emotion recognition and what you can do with that. And one of the examples, I just pulled it up here, and the chief marketing guy from Nuance, which is another company in this space, gave the example. He says, if your car thinks you sound stressed, it may SMS your office to say you're late, or even automatically suggest another route that avoids traffic. Things like that, based on your emotional state, make a lot of sense to me, right?
Like that, if you are stressed,
and
then what it does is it gives you a longer path to the office, right? So that you don't go in there and...
Well, maybe what they do is, I don't know if these guys, I mean, I know a lot of cosmetics companies, they also, own spas and all kinds of other things. So maybe, they see you, hey, you're stressed, and we're going to send you an offer to go show up at the spa. That's a lot better than getting, save $50 today generically from Groupon, on, such and such massage.
You got me there.
So,
like, I like that idea about the tension, like detecting tension. Right, and I think that in your voice or the way that you're talking, and then reacting to that, and I think that is very cool technology. Nuance does a great job of it, because they're in the voice recognition system, and they are able to, one of the greatest technologies is they can actually remove all of the background noise, so they can really synthesize and focus on the voice. And I think that to me is that is very cool. When that happens, that'll be excellent. It'll just be.
And if you can read the same kinds of signals from facial expressions, then again, the same concept applies. And I think that's what they're going for.
It's just, we are we're at step 1, and this seems like a step 10 solution, right? But I think that's what has to happen in these kind of things. But I just think, in order for it to be mainstream, in order for it to be in every store, in order for us to understand and recognize it and allow our face to be recognized, I mean, we as humans have to adapt to these technologies. And I think it starts with, the first step has got to be, what's the real benefit to me? So I can understand, like, if I'm stressed and it's in my voice, then create an action out of it. Do something. I don't know, play soothing music, turn on a fragrance that is supposed, like lilacs that are supposed to calm you down, or something like that. Change my dash to purple instead of red. Whatever it is that you do, right? There's natural steps that allow me to feel comfortable with the technology before all of a sudden I'm in a store and there's this camera in my face and it's like, hey, listen, you need wrinkle cream and you need a massage and is that I just, maybe there's just a screaming kid and it's just a bad day. But I do think that emotions in lines are very interesting, right? So studying body posture and lines, long lines, will give you an indication about customer satisfaction. And there are the people who aren't going to say anything, because 95% of people don't say anything when they've had a bad experience. But if you study the way people stand in lines in long queues in grocery stores, you will get a plethora of data. And I think that maybe there's an opportunity for something like this. There's a $1 million idea. So that's Libka Radugi and Singera tracking facial expressions in store to sell you cosmetics. That was a good story. 7 stories. We had Chuck Martin at the beginning. Krina Patel is our special guest. We have one last piece, which is the resource of the weekend. You know what, Asif? I don't even know what to say. It's a story on Media Shower. They interviewed you.
I know.
Love it. 10,000 hours in 10 minutes with Asif Khan. Great title, by the way. I love that title. What is this thing?
I decided to share this one. I don't normally do this, but I decided to share this one, not to promote myself, but simply say,
I'm so smart.
I get asked to do a lot of these things, and I thought the questions that were asked here were really, really good, and they did a really good job of articulating each piece here, and there's a lot of great information here, just factual stuff in some of the leading, interesting cases that I like right now around interesting project case studies. I talk about in here, the role between social media and location-based marketing, which is something I get asked a lot at conferences. So if you're just interested in the space and you want to understand a little bit of the inner nuances of what's going on in location, it's a good little article that can give you some insight.
Very cool. And will you put this up, a link up at Untether, at the lbma.com/research?
Probably under the press
section. Well, it'll be linked up. If you find the show notes on untether.tv, this is episode number 138. You will be able to link to that as well. And I love it. I mean, you brought up eMart in Korea. You brought up your augmented reality project with Lancome. You brought these are relevant, very important projects. If you missed that, the eMart, it's the floating store. The floating Wi-Fi store that we talked about last week in episode number 130.
Actually, no, this one's not. The one in the article is the QR code generated 3D, by... I
should have read that, eh?
Yeah, it's okay.
So if you're interested in that, go to untether.tv for the show notes, episode number 138, or the lbma.com in the press section, and that is our resource of the week. I love that title, man. 10,000 hours in 10 minutes. It just kind of distills all of your information, everything you know in 10 minutes. Now you're going to be as smart as Asif Khan.
If only I could be as smart as Asif Khan.
I was talking about cons. I was interviewing Sal Khan, of no relation. Yeah. And when I told people, I got this great episode up there with Sal Khan, and they said, oh, well, you talk to him every week. I'm like, no, that's Asif Khan. This is Sal Khan, the guy who does... who is basically recreating education with the Khan Academy, right? And he started talking to me. It's an episode that I was up on Untether.tv, and the reason I bring it up is that he said, at some point in the future, we're going to be talking about becoming an expert in a field. Like you want to be an expert in mobile, and it'll only take you, a day to become an expert in mobile. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of career limiting for me.
Great. What does that mean?
Exactly. I'm like, I don't like that, Khan. I'm going to actually destroy you, Khan. I didn't say that. And then you know what? I saw this great thing. I'll finish up with Sal here because there was a Twitter post Twitter post that came out from Bill Gates, and it has this picture of it. And it says hey, just hang in with the Khan Academy guys, and it was a great picture of Sal Khan and Bill Gates having a conversation at the Khan Academy offices. And I think that guy hangs with some pretty important people, and I got an opportunity to sit with him, and I think that's pretty cool. But he basically destroyed my future in that 11-minute segment. Khan Academy. All right, so that is it. Go to untether.tv and look for episode number 138 if you want to get to that. Or you can just go to mediashower.com and you'll be able to see it there as well. 10,000 hours in 10 minutes with Asif Khan on location-based marketing. And that, my friends, is the last story for this, our 138th episode. We will see you next week for episode number 139. Thank you, folks, for watching. If you have any feedback, if you'd like to ask us a question, we will play it on air and we will answer it right then and there. Reach out. untether.tv/talk. But until then, we'll see you next week. Asif, enjoy the rest of your vacation, man.
Thank you, sir.